Good morning, everybody. It is the 7th episode of the live stream. Thank you for coming. Um, Looks like we got a few people already in here, which is great. The usuals, Brian. Thanks for coming. Hatfield's last stream won, so welcome for coming again, or thank you for coming again, Jessica and producer Reef. Some people it's not morning, obviously, but here on the West Coast it is the morning for us. Um, Everybody's got daylight savings time next or tomorrow, actually. Whereas here in Arizona, we don't have to change our clocks, which is great. How's it going, Joe Little? Daniel, welcome. So let me move my computer over here, and we're gonna go over a couple things to start. What's up, Devin? Thanks for coming on time. Appreciate it. Let's see, Joe Little. Hey, Tim, how's it going, buddy? Peter, what's going on? So the first thing I wanted to mention is last week we did a stream on Ecotech Marine, and there was a number of questions and a number of things that people brought up to me, and I wanted to clarify a few things before we go on with what we're going to discuss today. So after doing a number of research on Ecotech and actually calling them, it appears that the Versa pumps only have a Bluetooth capability in them. Whereas last week I think I had mentioned that they have a wireless and a Bluetooth capability in them, which means that for those that are thinking of getting the Versa, they're going to have some form of a conduit to operate that pump outside of the house. The reason I bring this up is because the unit that I'm giving out today is a Bluetooth only unit, which means you can't configure it outside of your house or actually outside of the room that it's in typically. So I just wanted to clarify that some of the people that have commented and spoke to me over the last couple days had mentioned that the Ecotech Versa is more than likely not going to be able to be controlled outside of the house for the time being. Now that could be something that is happening later, like I said last time. There's probably going to be some sort of new reef link, but at this point, you cannot control it because it only has a Bluetooth. Whereas the Gen 5 Radeon has a different chip that has Wi-Fi in it. So I don't know what they're going to do exactly. But I just wanted to clarify that what I said last week is incorrect in that the Versa does only have Bluetooth. And I've clarified that with Ecotech themselves, and a number of other people had mentioned that to me. So anyway, today's giveaway is sitting right next to me. So the first thing I'm going to be giving away is a Kamoer X1 dosing pump. This one I used on my Nano for quite a while, so that's why I mentioned it's used. It works perfectly fine. But they're nice little pumps. I'll show you kind of what they look like in my hand. You will see they are very small. And you can daisy chain them. They are Bluetooth, and they're really nice little pumps. They work really well. So, haven't used this in probably 6 months. So it's been sitting in storage. So I figured, what the heck, I just give it away to people. Let's see who else made it. Ben, what's going on? David, Joe, Mark, it's nice to see you on the stream. Couple new people here. So for those that don't know, the contest or the giveaway I do at the end of the stream. So you have to stay till the end. You have to mention a magic word in the stream, which most people have already done. And I do calculate who has asked questions because it's very important to me that you guys ask questions so I can keep the live streams going every week. I'm also giving away an Icecap fish trap. Now, this one is brand new. It's the medium, which is 8 by 6 by 6 inches. This is a pretty good size for most people's aquariums. Um, as you can see, it hasn't been used. It's brand new. I don't need it because I have larger fish. So that's the other thing that I will be giving away. Um, New people have to sing. Yeah, that's great. That's fine with me, Joe. All right, let me move over to here. So, first things first, we're going to go over specifically some more advanced topics today. Um, and we did have a live stream on auto top-offs and kind of what we do with them. Um, but I want to go over kind of advanced ways of doing the auto top-off. There's also some other ways to do auto water changes that I want to go over and kind of what I do in my house. And I am going to be releasing a video this week of my plumbing and all of my controls in my reef tank so you guys can actually see what it looks like. If you haven't seen my Reef Dude stream or my Neptune Control Freak stream, I'm going to go by step and show you my setup and show you kind of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So let's see. Do we have any questions yet? I don't see any questions yet. But we're going to go over plumbing as well, and we're going to go over flow sensors as well. So, anybody have questions about plumbing, flow sensors, auto top off, auto water changes? That's going to be the topic today. Again, you're always welcome to ask whatever you'd like to ask in the stream, and I'll try to get to it as quickly as I can. So, plumbing. I get a lot of questions about plumbing and what's the best way to do plumbing, and sometimes people ask me what color plumbing they should do. Um, the key to plumbing is unions. So anytime you're doing hard plumbing in a fish tank, you want to make sure that you have a lot of unions. You want a union by your return, so you want to be able to get rid of the return if there's ever a problem or clean it. You do want to have unions just about everywhere in case you want to add something or change something. So anytime you guys are doing plumbing, I highly recommend unions and a lot of them. It'll save you quite a bit if you're doing hard plumbing. Um, so to start with plumbing, like I said, always have a union at return, always have a union at your drain, always have a union at anything that you're getting, taking water from or putting water in, put a union there. So you never know when you need to remove it. In my sump, I have two large unions that go to my drains, and I have a big union that goes to my return. That way, if I ever need to remove my sump, it's really easy. I just take the unions out and pull the sump out. Okay, so we have a couple questions. Let me get to those. What is the best way to maintain safety when using an auto top off from my RO container? When using from my RO container. I think we're going to go over that. I'm not sure what you're asking. Maintain safety when using auto top off from an RO container. Generally, it depends on the pump you're using. It depends on what you're doing with the container. Is it a large container? How far away is your tank from the RO container? I think I'm going to go over that though, Jeffrey. So let me table that question here for a few minutes until I get to what I was going to discuss. And then if I don't answer your question, just bring it up again for me. Does Apex flow sensors bolt right up to the Red Sea plumbing? So Apex makes a couple different flow sensors, which I'm going to show you guys. Give me 1 second here. And what you're going to want to do is get the appropriate flow sensor for your application. Red Sea, I believe, and someone yell at me if I'm wrong, I believe is 3/4 inch, if I'm not mistaken. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? As you could probably tell, I'm a little tired today, so I apologize. Come on, Derek. FMM accessories. There we go. All right, so they make a 2 inch, they make a 1 inch, and they make a 1/2 inch, and they make a 1/4 inch. So I would recommend if you have 3/4 inch plumbing to do the inch flow sensor right here. So that's what I would do if you are asking David. Bolt right up to the Red Sea. This comes with both NPT fittings and also plumbing fittings, so you can use the 1 inch sensor probably right up to the Red Sea plumbing. Hope that answers your question. How many different sizes? I just answered that. Everything I want to control by my X to be plugged into it. Correct. I'm assuming if I extend my power cord since the sump is a basement. Okay, so Mike, for a living, I actually install and configure and program home automation systems. So I run wires in attics quite a bit. And here in Arizona, you cannot extend power cords without a junction box. So what that means is that if you want to cut the wire, which I'm assuming is code in most states, you need to have it in an electrical box in the attic. So yes, you can extend the power cords from your sump to your tank, but just make sure that it follows code. And what I mean by that is if it's 120 power, it's going to have some form of a junction point, and it's going to need to be in a box. I hope I explained that, but yes, that works just fine. Instead of a union, what do you think about the rubber sleeve with the hose clamps that they sell at Home Depot? Um, They're okay. I think unions are easier to work with. You can get them in any size you want. They look nice. I would stick with unions. Yeah, absolutely, Producer Reef, you can do that. I will show you here. So you will see that I have a couple flow sensors. I don't use a lot of flow sensors, but I have my scrubber on a flow sensor here, and it gives me a value of 275. So what I can do is I made a virtual outlet here, and I'll show you that here in a second. Reef, here, fish flow, there we go. So this is one of my virtual outlets that alerts me if the flow is off, and I have it right here. So that would be your flow sensor control to turn something off or on. It would be if the flow sensor is greater than or whatever in your case, what you want it to be, maybe 0, or if it goes below 100, you could set it right here, and then you can make it basically do whatever you'd like from there. So hopefully that answers your question. So, okay. So plumbing wise, I personally think manifolds are the best way to go nowadays. It seems to be an up and coming thing that people do. However, when you do a manifold, just keep in mind that there's going to be less pressure in the line, and you're going to need a larger pump depending on your manifold setup. So in my manifold setup, let me pull up a picture here. Like I said, I'm a little tired today, so I'm a little slow, unfortunately. Normally, I'm a lot quicker with things, so I apologize to everyone if I'm a little slow. Um, so you'll see in my manifold setup, I have a return that if you look right here, there's my return, and that's the union that I was discussing. I then have it going through a four-way. So I have the right one here going to my chiller, and I have the left one going to a manifold bar, which I'll show you another picture of. And then I have the top one going to the clear water scrubber here. So with this four-way, I'm automatically losing quite a bit of pressure in my lines, which is why I have such a large pump. And then as I go to the left here, I have more things coming out of it. So anytime you guys use a manifold, I obviously recommend valves, which you'll see I have a valve at every corner here. But then I also have unions. All the valves come with unions. And you'll see right here at the top is a big flow sensor going to my return with unions. So you see that? Let's see, Joe had a question. When it comes to return plumbing, when my water has come to the flex tubing return, is that really the best way it should go or replace? Yeah, we're going to go over that in a second, Joe. Reef Dudes or Devin, I do find them to be very useful, specifically for what I'm going to discuss today, which is plumbing UV sterilizers and plumbing scrubbers or any type of device that requires a specific flow going into it. I recommend that you put the flow sensor before the whatever the device is, not after. I had a question on the group about that. So let me show you some other pictures here, some more expanded pictures, so you can kind of get an idea. You'll see on the top, I have a flow sensor right here, right before it goes into the clear water. So that way I'm able to know exactly what the flow is going into my clear water. I also have a flow sensor on my large tank, which I believe I have a picture of somewhere here. Nope, that's not what I wanted to find. Ignore all the other pictures. Oh, here's a good picture of the manifold. So this was the original configuration that I had. And this is kind of when we were building everything. You can see I have a large manifold pipe here, but I have a union here in case I ever need to change it or remove it. We did end up cutting this right here and putting a flow sensor here. We did end up putting a flow sensor here. Again, this was kind of our first draft of our manifold before it came to fruition. Let me see if I got some other. I thought I had some other pictures here. Just give me a second. I got all kinds of crap here. Here we go. This is a good one. Okay, so this is my large tank, which I did a video on, and this was this pipe right here has a flow sensor on it. It doesn't in this picture, but it does now. If you guys have seen my video, you've probably seen it. This goes directly to my UV sterilizer, which is right here, and it monitors the flow, so I can adjust the flow to whatever I want for the UV. Was that a dogfish in the? Thank you, Siraj. Yeah, the more and more people we get, the more of these content videos I can do. I appreciate all the support, definitely. So Ben, the flow sensor only seems to work some of the time. So unfortunately, with the Neptune flow sensors, I've had a couple issues with them myself. I've noticed that if they have kind of a weaker flow, they seem to not last as long as if I have a much stronger flow going through them. The easy way to fix them is to open them up and blow through the sensor, or even you could just take like a pen or something and just hit the sensor a little bit, and then it will get going again. But yes, that is a issue that I think plagues the flow sensors. Devin, the number is either liter per gallon or gallon per hour. You can change that. Let me show you where that is. So if you go to your flow sensor under the modules, so FMM, I don't know if I have a flow sensor in this one, but right here you can change that to liters per hour if you want to on the flow sensor. Let's see. Check with the did you find the flow sensors accurate? They are extremely accurate. I have not tested them with a measuring cup because I'm too lazy, but I'm assuming that they are accurate because I could tell you that I did put my scrubber pump right up next to it, and the company that makes it says at a foot of head it would be this flow, and it was almost identical to what the packaging said. Uh, how low of a flow will the flow sensors register? Lower flow for a nano with an apex. They will. I think they will go all the way to 1. I've had them as low as 20 before on one of my tanks. So I hope that answers your questions. Do the flow sensors need to be cleaned often? Johnny, that's a terrific question, and I kind of answered that with Ben. They do not need to be cleaned, but if you start to register weird numbers with them, I would definitely take them out and kind of just blow in the tube so that they spin a little bit. Um, I've never cleaned them. Um, what was the dogfish in the? Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. Do you find your FMM module auto detects the wrong module that is plugged in? That has happened to me reefing with O. So the auto detect, I just set it to auto detect, and if it works off the first plug-in, then I'm fine. But yes, I have seen that before. So that's why they give you the option to uncheck it and pick whichever one you want. So that has happened to me, yes. So that's a good question. Yeah, I got all my dogs are gonna be walking in and out right now because my wife isn't home, so they're just gonna be coming in and out. Yeah, like Siraj just said, if it starts acting weird, that's when you clean it. I don't see any type of reason to clean it otherwise. Lovely one, you can definitely put soft plumbing into them. They have MPT and they have standard PVC fittings, so you can use either or and then just do an adapter. So someone had mentioned soft plumbing and hard plumbing. So for the longest time, I had soft plumbing on my 300 gallon, and it started to become a web's nest of all this, or a web of all this stuff that was just intertwined with each other. And I found it to be so much more difficult to work with. So to answer the question, I don't remember who asked it. I find hard plumbing to be significantly less maintenance because you don't ever touch it. I've never had my hard plumbing get clogged with anything. And then again, I've only had hard plumbing now for 3 years, so who knows after a decade if it starts to get clogged with stuff. But if you use a large enough diameter, like in my 300, I use an inch and a quarter or an inch and a half, and I think having a larger PVC pipe will definitely give you the um, the redundancy, I guess you could say, not having to worry about it getting clogged. The flow sensors are terrific because then you know if there's a clog. Because if you put a flow sensor in any of these pipes and you start to get a clog, the flow sensor will just dramatically start going down. You know there's something wrong in your plumbing, and then you can fix it at that point. Having the unions allows you to break apart pieces so you can replace them as you get clogs or any type of issues. So I highly recommend unions, like I said, as many as you can do without it looking silly. Um, so let's see if we go back to, yeah, so here's all the different flow sensors, like I said, and you just need an FMM module to use them. Yeah, so Joe, I don't know if you guys saw, let me pull up a picture here if I can do it. I have kind of on my reef a little bit of both, but you didn't see them because I hide them all really nice. Let me see if I can find it. Um, there we go. So if you look really closely on my Clearwater scrubber here, um, you'll see that the Clearwater has a tube right here that is a flexible tube. Also, I have a chiller on the other end here, so I have a flexible tube coming out of the manifold into my chiller and then coming back into the hard plumbing. So you can kind of use a little bit of both to give you more flexibility. Um, so you don't have to do 100% hard plumbing. Um, I only use the soft tubing for certain areas, and I only use black because I don't like to see the vinyl tubing, and I don't like to see the clear tubing with algae or whatever build up inside. So, yeah, you could definitely do both. And yes, I would definitely recommend unions on vinyl tubing as well. I'd recommend unions as much as possible to make your life just easier for maintenance. They come in handy. Let me see what we got here. Here. So, like I said, there's not much on plumbing I wanted to discuss other than unions and flow sensors. Let's see what kind of questions you guys had about them. If you look at my pictures, you'll see I have um, unions just about everywhere. I got a union here on my roller mat, so it's easy to remove my roller mat. I got a union here, so it's easy to replace my return pump or clean it if I ever have to. I also have a union here, so I can remove this piece of plumbing right here if I ever want to change how this is. Um, Basically, I made it 100% removable to make it easier for myself. Let me see if I have some more pictures of the other tank and other size of things. Um, You'll see I have a union up here on my emergency drain. So in case I ever have to remove my sump, I can just remove this guy right here. I get the shutoff valves from Bulk Reef Supply. They're CEPEX, CEPEX. They make all these different sizes for them. If you just go on Bulk Reef Supply's website and look for valves, you will definitely find them. Here's a good picture. So on my larger tank, you'll see I have the unions right here on the sump. And this way, um, I can remove the sump easily if I ever have to. So that's what those unions are for right here. Are there glues that are not safe? That's a good question. I don't believe so. I believe you can use any PVC glue. Don't use ABS. Make sure it's PVC glue. Um, For these particular flow sensors, they are Schedule 80, so make sure you're using Schedule 80 glue. So Brian, I've had this UV sterilizer installed for probably 10 years. Um, I've replaced it once before, and my valves are vertical, or sorry, not vertical. They are parallel to the ground. As long as you shut off the outgoing flow from the UV when you first turn it on, you won't get any air in there. I mean, I never got any air in there. So let's see. We're going to go over to here. And then we are going to change some stuff around here. And we're going to go over some fun stuff now. All right. So some of you have seen my setup. These are, I think the company is Winesco, or I always forget every time people ask me. I think it's Winesco or Nesco containers. Let me see if I can find them. Let's see. That's none of this stuff. Nesco containers. I'm never gonna find them. Norwesco. There we go. I would have got it eventually. So these are the containers I have. They make a ton of different containers. You can get them usually at Tractor Supply stores. They make them in all different sizes. They're perfect for salt water. They're perfect for fresh water, whatever you want to use them on. I use them. I think mine are 65-gallon units. Um, Brian, my reef bot is installed. This is an old picture. No big price difference from the UV to the next. What is your suggestion on brands? Should you buy bigger than you need? No, you should not buy bigger than you need. The price difference from UV to next depends on the wattage that you require for your tank. Generally, Pentair, who I believe makes them, they used to be Emperor Aquatics. Those are probably going to be your best bet for UV. I don't recommend UV sterilizers generally to most people. I think they are not worth the money. The reason I have a UV in my larger tank is because I have a lot of fish and I've had it for so long that I don't want to get any type of parasites in the tank, any free floating ones, anything that could come up. I have definitely changed that to a different flow rate over the years so that I could do it that way. Let me see. 1 second. So we're gonna kind of go over this. I'm gonna see if I can zoom in a little bit to a couple different things. So basically, how this guy works is I have two containers, and the two containers are fresh and salt. And I actually had one of the guys in our group ask about how I'm doing this. I have changed this over the years, so this picture isn't exactly up to date, but the same concept holds true. I've kept pretty much everything the way that I have it here. So how I do this is I have a 7-stage 200 gallon per hour RO unit that gets hooked up right next to my water heater here. So that's where I get the water from. And then all water heaters have a drain, so I just was able to plumb it right to my drain, which made it a lot easier for me. Give me 1 second, and I'm trying to look over some other pictures just to make sure I don't have anything missing here. So all I do is I have a solenoid on the output of the unit. I have a solenoid on the fresh side and a solenoid on the right side. And basically what I do is I just have it turn on and off depending on which one I want to fill with high and low sensors. Give me one moment here. My mic is starting to act up. All right, I think you guys can hear me still. Okay, I think I'm back. So I have, like I said, I have a fresh and salt water container here, and one of them has a T, and one of the T's go to my fresh, and one of the T's go to my salt, and I just have a solenoid on the end of the T. And what I do is I have a high sensor on one, and I have a high and a low sensor on one, and I have a high and low sensor on the other. And that's basically how I'd have it done. So I can have it turn on the fresh, and I can have it turn on the salt whenever I need to. Let's see. Something's going on with my mic. Give me about a minute. Let me see if I can fix my mic. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so let me know if you can hear me, by the way. Does everybody hear me in the chat there? Just say yes or no. My mic kept going off and on for some reason, so okay. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so what I was saying. I was trying to explain it and my mic just kept going off and on. All right, so there is a high sensor and a low sensor in my bin. And I have it just about, say, you could probably see it right there. There's where my water comes in. And I have a high sensor right above that, and then I have a low sensor at the bottom of the fresh, and then I have a high sensor here, and I have a low sensor on the salt, and then I have a T back here, which I believe I have another picture for, which I'll get for you guys. And the T has a solenoid on one side and a solenoid on the other side. And then what I do is I program it so whenever the low sensor gets low on the salt or the low sensor gets low on the fresh, it refills and goes to the top of the bin. I then have programmed a an alert that tells me when the unit has filled up, and then it also tells me when the fresh water has filled up. So I'm able to know when the saltwater bin, for instance, has filled up, so I can put salt in it. And I do the same thing for the fresh because, I just want to know when the water has filled up. So again, I have a 7-stage unit. I highly recommend anyone that's making water, at least here in the Southwest area, we have really bad water, that you have a really good RO unit and you check the TDS often, specifically when the unit is on. I would highly recommend that you're checking the salt water, or the TDS, sorry. Anytime my unit turns on, I check the TDS. And I have requested Neptune to make some TDS meters because that would be fantastic to know if my TDS is too high, that I could know when to replace my filters. So I'm using, I use SpectraPure filters, which I think I went over in a live stream before. I think SpectraPure makes the best filters. They're here locally for me. I live in Gilbert, Arizona, and they are located in Tempe, Arizona, which is approximately 10 minutes away from me. So it's really nice. I can get whatever I need from them, any of their filters, whenever I need. I also have meters, which you can see on the right there, which I'm going to explain kind of how I go through that and how I use them. Um, I have a pump that I've changed over the years. So this is no longer there actually down here, but I have a Vectra pump down here that feeds through the salt water. There's a pump up here and there's a lower pump right here. So let's